Maureen Wanjiru, how are you? Yes, Magak, thank you. Maybe Maureen, you can't hear me. Or your mic is wrong, not okay. Ian, how are you? Thank you, Matata. Assume most of you are here. So we are starting a bit late. I have just received a call from administrators to sort out on something, so I was trying to assist as we move on. But nonetheless, welcome everyone to today's lecture, and I hope you had a good weekend last weekend, though now it's midweek, and I hope you are all fine and ready to move. A recap of what we discussed last week and last week we were reflecting on various perspectives of informatics, and so what was the purpose is of that was to get an understanding of how different people will look at technology, and also to develop your skills to be able to appreciate the technology, and also to offer maybe a criticism, if any, about the technology for purposes of understanding it in the context of the society. That is the essence of what we were discussing last week. Now, unless there is any clarification from last week concepts, I know I've not shared the notes with you. I needed time to add a few other things, because they were quite brief to broaden them. So I'm finalizing. So then, when I give you, you have more comprehensive, lecture notes. So, is there any question from the previous discussion up to where we reached, just in case there's a clarification before I move to what I want to do today? Good. Could appear there isn't. So then I can move to lecture 3. And in this lecture 3, we are going to look at a few aspects like value of ICT, and that means we look at how do we appreciate the value for ICT, and why should we call something value for ICT. Then after that, we will then look at what we call the fundamental ideas that you can actually use to be able then to talk about the benefits of ICT in the society. Now, what we are going to discuss today would appear a bit heavy, but I'll try as much as possible to simplify and then encourage you as much as possible to seek clarification from your end. So I am aware we will need to stop at some point because there's a meeting coming up. So let's start. So what is now value of socio-informatics? So here we want to understand ourselves what we were talking about last time, the various perspectives. Where do others say informatics has these benefits? So we want to understand from what angle do they actually look at this and then say this is good. So there is this statement here which says that predictions about the social effect is very important. The social effect of specific ICT consequences are proven inadequate or inaccurate. Why should it be inaccurate? It's because there is oversimplified conceptual models. Now, if you check in I do not know how you structured your chapter 2, but when you go to other advanced levels, chapter 2 of your proposal or whatever academic document you are going to do, we normally say that you can represent what you are doing in a conceptual manner. A conceptual model is like that. For instance, if you have a system that you are doing, and then you are told describe this system using a diagram, meaning that you can draw your diagram, rather your system, in a diagrammatic form. That diagram will clearly show what's the input, what is the process, and what is the output. So that element of trying to simplify something and to represent something in a diagrammatic manner, we call it conceptual model. Sometimes conceptual model, because whatever you are building, we say it comes from the concepts. Because what constitutes the input can be a category of concepts. What constitutes the processes is how these various concepts will be manipulated and such kind of things. So therefore, sometimes that oversimplification, or what others can actually say, looking at something on base value, and that if you look at something on a base value or face value, then you don't know to go in and dig deeper. So that is essentially what is being articulated here. That do not just look at what you see and actually therefore accept it as it is. Which then now this goes back to whatever we talked about, the deterministic view perspective, that what goes in is, when you put this, is what you expect. So that therefore brings in sometimes inaccurate predictions that this system or this system is going to have the following consequences. That is what we are showing, oversimplification. Now, the relationship between technology and social change, therefore, needs to be brought into being, okay, in all this. With that, then, which is really a continuation of what we were talking about last week. For example, many analysts of computerization or digitalization, and in fact, today, I really hope if I'm going to manage to show you exactly this, I hope Stephen and Dennis will remind me next week. I show you this from a practical perspective, really, about from what people are doing, which presents a challenge. But I endeavor to show it today. For example, many analysis or computerization or digitalization assume that ICT have a direct effect upon organizations and the social life. What does that mean? It means they assume from the very fundamental principles that you have always talked about when we talk about processing capabilities of computer. Remember, there's this simple principle which is usually said, what goes in determines what gets out. Commonly referred to as garbage in, garbage out. Now, that used to be the premise of an argument. But I think over time, this has changed. That you may have some wrong data, but you can have strong processes that can change that bad data into something useful. And that is now what the narrative we are trying to say here. So there was that element of that ICT have direct effects upon organization, and that is why you will always hear many people saying that we are going to use ICT for strategic advantage. And I think this one you have heard it many times. That if we have ICT now in our organization, then we are going to do very well. Sometimes it can be really the source of evil, or it can be, because sometimes when you change people to be robots, then the human aspect is lost. That's why we are saying, therefore, do not always actually say it's going to be direct, but it may be indirect. Yeah. So, and this argument, therefore, is dependent primarily upon the ICT's information processing features. And that's now where we are actually exactly what I actually said, that nowadays um, you can give, and I think some of you, I suppose, are going to continue with their studies and become data engineers, data analysts, data scientists, all this. So sometimes you'll give a data scientist data which have some issues, but they will create something out of it. Why is it the case? It's because of what we are saying, the processing power of the computing devices have changed, and hence they have actually made these things to be possible. I invite you, and last time again said that you can find time to read more about Moore's law. In fact, one of the Moore's law says that he predicted that the computing power will be increasing in an exponential manner for the next, unforeseen, time. He also predicted that there will be changes in the way devices are. You see now there are more small computers as compared to the previous ones which were big. So the computing power has significantly increased. Now we talk about, when we used to talk about kilobytes, you read earlier books, they used to talk about the highest being, gigabyte. But now we are talking about, in terms of size, we are talking about terabyte. And in that terabyte, you are storing it in a very small machine. So in other words, these have actually changed. And therefore, the effects in the society is also not direct, but is also dependent on other factors. Therefore, to understand the value of ICT, there are things that one will need to have in mind. One is, what are the fundamental ideas of social informatics? Once you know the idea of social informatics, then you can actually be able to measure the value. Now, what are these fundamental ideas? So we'll start with what we call the theoretical approach. From the theoretical approach, it presumes direct effect theory. In fact, it's more of what we have talked about in the previous section. That means we are saying that we become, from a theoretical perspective, theory presupposes, that everything is going to be what? Everything is going to be as it is. But then in reality, you see, things may change. Okay? So from the theoretical perspective, that's why we normally say, in theory, this is true. But then in practice, you find that it's not exactly necessarily true. So from the theoretical perspective, there is what you are saying, the direct effect theory. Now, and what I've used theory here, one would actually say perspective, is a theoretical approach. It's not that there is a statement of theory, like, you say the theory of gravitational, oscillations and that kind of things. No. Here we are actually saying it's a way in which people are looking at things, or a way in which you can actually look at these things. So there's the direct effect theory. The direct effect theory presupposes that ICT, and anything associated with ICT will have a direct impact on the society, will have a direct impact on an organization, will have a direct impact on the people. That's why we say now, for you to identify this, the social consequence of computerization, some activities one must have at least an implicitly a theory of causal power. And I will want now this one to explain what we mean by causal power. Allow me to just write something here. In the causal power, we assume that there is going to be input, and in this particular input, we can talk about raw materials. Okay, and then it presupposes that there is going to be, some kind of changes which will occur to give an output. Okay, so meaning with that, when we are saying implicitly imply, so with that direct causal effect, it assumes that if you put in like e.g., we can actually say e.g., if x is we can say if x is the input, it has a direct influence on maybe y. Okay. Now, this influence could be positive or negative, right? So that is what it means by causal power, that it has a change. It can lead to some sort of change, okay? And this change can be positive or negative. That's why here that computerized systems can exert upon individual, groups, organizations, institutions, networks, among others. Now, let me bring it a little bit home, okay? Sorry, this font is becoming smaller and smaller. I hope it will not. Let's see social media, okay, as an input, okay? Or as, let's say, as technology, okay? What influence does it have on a group of workers in an organization? And in fact, yesterday somebody kind of asked a question like this. I usually prepare my classes in what we normally say, in a context. So if you check on this, social media, we know is a technology which is has permitted into every aspect of the society. People are using it for one, communication. Others are using it for purposes of actually doing some work. Now, we can actually look at this and actually see that among, like in your case, I suppose you are a group of people working. Of course, you have the common denominator, you are all students. But you realize you are using, like, for instance, WhatsApp for purposes of communication. Then you can actually look at it and then you see it has affected you directly on how you communicate. It has directly affected you on how you do things. So that is actually what the direct effect is. It could be, it's important here. You can, like now, I know in your group you're around 106. Now you realize that not everybody is very happy with WhatsApp or being in that group WhatsApp. But there are also others who feel very good. So you can see it has those what we are saying, both negative and positive. And this is actually the essence of what we are actually talking about, the social, that we must actually look at what is that direct. We can actually imply it. Now, one common theoretical approach is to conceptualize, therefore, for you to be able to understand this correctly, is therefore to conceptualize. You must, first of all, to conceptualize. And this is very important. When you guys formed maybe that WhatsApp group, there was the good intention. What you actually perceived that is going to, if we have this, then our communication ability will be enhanced. That is a conceptualization. What you felt it's going to assist you to. But you go ahead and actually say, then when you start using it, then you realize maybe something else may come out. As we are going to see ahead. So in the conceptualization of the ICT as a collection of equipment, artifacts, techniques which provide specifiable information processing capability, which have identifiable costs, physical characteristics, and skills requirement. So this one is really the thinkers of this direct actually assume this. I think that is enough for that particular section. So direct effect therefore theories imply the earliest effort to anticipate the social consequence of computerization in organization. And I think that's where I started from, saying that there was that element, everybody was thinking that this thing is for, it has, if I have a computer, I have, my organization is good. But then there has been, other unforeseen, characteristics or consequences that have actually come. Not because they are bad, but consequences. So if you go back and read this particular, I remember to have said that there will be some bit of reading, don't worry. Argue that the direct effect model has a strong appeal to researchers because of the seemingly natural causality that is implied by the effect of computerization on the organization. So many people would actually, sorry, I know when I say you are now researchers, by the way, when you reach in this year where you have reached, we assume that at least you can actually be able to conduct basic research. So many researchers will want to actually say, okay, you have put these computers in your organization because you want ABCD, but that is why it becomes easier. That's what this is talking about here. Later, it's a way of justifying where we come from the thinking. This author here, Harper, concludes that the use of computer-assisted information processing and communication will lead to elimination of human nodes in information processing network. So if you eliminate what you call human nodes, what happens? And we are having a society which has its own consequences anyway. However, these direct effects argue that link the use of new ICT to organization and social change have not generalized it very well. So basically, this is a conclusion of what I've really discussed, that there has always been people looking at the organization, the effects the computerization has on the organization, but they fail to look at before this you started computerizing, well, and they have human beings. So when you bring them in, what happens with these human beings? What the social dynamics in the organization, and such kind of things. But of course, there is something here that we are also looking with is the social dynamic of an organization. Um, Computers tend to reduce what we call organizational hierarchy. They actually now, I think, there's what we call hierarchical structure of organization, and there is what we call horizontal kind of structure. That means, therefore, computerization has helped to reduce that long, from the junior to the very top. It has tried to even it out because um, the junior can directly communicate with the senior, and the senior can directly communicate with the junior without passing through the IRAC. That's what we are talking about, computerization. So in that particular case, so you can see the interaction now between the very senior and the very junior, which was not there, has actually been created, and that one is what we call a social change in an organization. Now, sometimes the expected consequence happen, and at times it doesn't, and we talked about the paradoxical aspect of the same. So let me not talk about that more. At times, there is no significant impact. Um, I know of a student who was doing a study in one of the parastatals this country. They procured an enterprise resource planner ERP worth millions of shillings. Now, the anticipation in that organization was that this thing is going to improve our performances. Um, but then, when they put the system into organization, they realized the system, they had so many modules, but they were only using 30% of the modules that ERP had. So, what were the consequences of that kind of computerization? Number one, there was, I think they should have actually adopted what you call a phased adoption, so that then they are able to get the modules that they need and then go back later and acquire others. But so you see, when you buy all the modules, you need to buy expensively. So the organization lost revenue. Then the other thing, why didn't they use those other, modules? It's because they didn't have the, maybe the resources or the capacity within in terms of human capacity. And therefore, you can see if, and this is very important for you to note, if specific modules are not being used, and this enterprise system requires a particular module which is not in use, so you realize there is a breakout, rather breakdown. So with that breakdown in that particular node, which again we have talked about the other side, then it means really the ERP is no longer to have an impact in the organization. And this is very important. Therefore, when you are doing any system, you must pay attention to really whatever that you are going to advise your clients, or even the systems that you are going to do, how impactful are they going to be in the society? And an impact is a long term, it's a long term thing. So you must actually be able to look at this. And in some cases, ITCU seem to lead to effects that are opposite to what was expected. I think we talked about that. And these are some of the scholars or writers who have actually written on how you can look at the direct effect on the organization and also indirect effect on the organization. For you to be able to understand that indeed ICT has its own weaknesses and strengths. The next aspect is what we call varied effect. The first part is direct effect, but the second one is what we call varied effect. Now, the varied effect follows from the second perspective, rather the third perspective that we looked at last week. The one we talked about, the social tech perspective, right? So the varied effect is that whereby just you bring in the whatever the technology, it's going to influence the organization both in a direct or an indirect manner, and that is really what this tries to bring. Now, in general, there is no universal pattern found in work groups or in organizations. So that is what really how you want to look at the varied effect. Now, why is this the case? And I would want to give an example here. I was involved, that's way back before actually I joined Stratton, I think around 11 years ago. I was involved in a project of computerizing an hospital, and we were bringing on board what we call an integrated health management system. Um, so this required to have the clinical side. We also wanted to have the administration side. We also, and a few other areas. Let me not go into the details of this, but let me focus on the clinical side. In the clinical side, we had the nurses, we had the clinical officers, and we also had the doctors, or the what we call the medical officers. Now, as we went in, we were doing this process, and the system we thought is working very well. Now, but then we found that there are people particularly, and in fact, I can even show you a study for sure, and that's one I'm going to publish. You will actually all be able to read that one. We realized the people between the age of 18 to around 45, they were chap. You will tell them, do ABCD using this. Now this is a new system. These are people who have been doing things using paper and pen. And you tell them, yeah, you can type, the clinical notes and other things like this. You can capture this, temperature and all these things like this. These other, the Catholic I'm talking about, were very, receptive. And I'm not saying that those who were above that age, the other age of 46 going up, were not receptive. They were, but they had the following challenges. Number one, this was the first time some of them were actually interacting with a computer. So first of all, there was the fear. Others could not even hold a mouse. But then the comfort we gave them is that you know how to use a computer. Then they were like, no, I've never used a computer. Then we told them, no. You see, if you have a phone is a computer. It's a small computer. Then they started having, Then we tried to show them, you see, the phone, the keyboard of the phone is the keyboard of the computer. So at least now they're, you know. But then, what is it then I am trying to bring here is no universal pattern found in work group. So you can see there were those who were chap going in, the computer to them made a lot of sense, because now I'm typing these things and I can actually retrieve, I can, such kind of things. But there were the others who were like, this thing is an intervention which is causing me, a lot of stress. And that is what we call varied effects you have. So when you are even doing it there for any system like the ones that you are doing for your informatics projects, reflect on what effect will it have when it is put in the organization you are conceptualizing to put it. So ICT use has also been shown to have different consequences for the way that work is organized and the extent to which jobs are filled. So the one I'm actually working on is a study we conducted, and we found that a greater percentage prefer particular technology, smartphones, in their routine work as compared to tablets. So you see, in that particular case, therefore, if that is the preference, if you are a person who's going to do computerization in that particular organization, you cannot take tablets there, because the people have said we want smartphones. So the best thing to do is to give them smartphones. And I remember in the discussion, I gave recommendation that for that county, going forward, they need to do what? They need to purchase smartphones, and also if they cannot purchase, then whatever applications that they are going to have, they should be mobile applications, because that's where majority are, and that's where the uptake will be impacted. That is what you can actually look at. So two things that are fundamental in understanding the effect, or in understanding the value of ICT. Number one, try to look at what is the direct effect that device or that ICT resource you are providing is going to have. Number two, try also to go ahead and actually try to analyze, is there a varied effect? How does it affect the organization itself? How does it affect the people who are working there in a varied manner? And as I've given examples, in fact, two I've actually seen sometimes it's not because of age, but I only use that because it was a perfect example there. But it's very possible that there are people of lower age who also have not interacted with the computer and can also have a significant challenge to them. Now, the social tech character, so these are consequence of whatever, and then again, we discussed last time the social perspective. And so this is also trying to understand what are the components in the social perspective. I think we identified them. There will be the social part and there's the technical side. The social side then will constitute what we call people. You can have, this largely constitutes the people and the divine relationships that exist. All right. Then hardware, software, and defines what we are calling the technical. But more importantly, there is what we call the techniques. Now, the techniques is like when you are doing your system. I do not know whether you come across this. You realize that people would want to know. Okay, you are saying we are going to like those of you who are doing health management systems. Uh, just to let you know that there's areas whereby you will want people to key in data. But there are other sections where you will need people not to key in, but rather the application to capture the what as you talk. So you see, in that particular case, it tells you what are the techniques. So meaning that you are going beyond the people who are the social, the tools, hardware and softwares who are the technical, but also now what will glue this together? How would they do these things? In other words, the how. Okay, and this is very, very important. There are also other aspects that you will need to have the socials, the support resources, which are there, always in your system. Have you ever asked yourself why every application released, there is a section of the help button? And as you do your system now, I hope most of the menu-driven, applications will have a section for help. Now, if yours is not menu-driven, it could be, and I'm not trying to say that all of us must be, have applications that are menu-driven, meaning that they have a tab where you are just saying, help button. But you can actually have what we call, a folder or a button somewhere where inside people can actually get what we call resources that guide on how to use a given tool. That is an important. Why should that be an important in your application? Because you are not going to be there throughout. It's important, yes, you train people, but I'm sure people will forget because it's a human nature. But then provide them a place where they can actually make reference to. And an application that provides that is more acceptable to people. That's what we call the support resources. And I'm trying to skew this into your course that you are doing. So I hope by the end of your course, when you are going to do your system, you will be able then to. This is what we normally talk about. What we call the user manual. Okay. But there are different ways in which we do the user manual. You can put the Q and A, FQA, frequently FAQ, frequently asked questions, and then try to, give, answers, potential, such kind of things. The other thing is information structure, content, and this. Now, this is an important one, and I hope this one I'm also to discuss it in greater details when we reach the other section. We talked about the design of the system. Now, what does it mean? It means this. You see, like if I say something like click, sorry, I want to yeah, uh, click here. You see, for you as a computer science student, you are like, yeah, I need to take the mouse and then click, you know, or if it's click, something, you know what it is. But what about somebody else? So what therefore social informatics requires of you, which I suppose by now you know, is that you should be in anticipation. Like when specific words are used, what will be the meaning? How will it be interpreted? What does it read to? And that's what we call the information structure. And that's why when I hope you're able to see my, I think I should have put in the, presentation mode and amount to, but anyway, if I put in the presentation, I can't type. You see, as I say home, there is something that you are in anticipation. So the same is what is very important in when you are doing a system. The other thing is what are the norms? What are the regulations and such kind of things? So then you are able to come up with a good system. So you can really see this is the social tech characteristics which brings realism into your system. That's why almost when you have an M file, people get to know, okay, it means ABCD. This is what I expect. Because that's what people are trained. So if people are trained in a particular way and providing a solution in another way, then there's a problem. Now, the content and the, we say it, context and the content, my apology here, context and the content. Sometimes it can be content and the content providers. Let's go content and content providers. So in other words, even the information you provide must be important. All right. So this is an important one. I know time is really running. I think that half past we'll be breaking for the meeting. Now, the social design of ICT. Yes, I think Afandi, was it Afandi? Yeah, I think yes. Afandi, if Afandi, I used your name wrongly, sorry. But I think you had asked Ben, why is this, because from the definition, we talked about social informatics, we touch on the design. So this is very important. If you realize now from the previous slide to this one, now we are actually interrogating your system. In other words, now we are trying to say why somebody's system is better than the other. And this is very important for those of you who intend now to scale up your applications. And actually, I've done a framework for scaling on this, and this is important for you to now look at what you pay attention to. Social design of ICT. In other words, you are designing something for people. This is very important. Just ask yourself this application I'm coming up with is for who? It must be for the people. But the next question still is which kind of people? Now let's reflect on the following examples. Have you ever asked yourself why M-Pesa has been a phenomenal thing in this country? Who can tell us? I think it's good to get to know what you are there, because there are other mobile money providers and such, but M-Pesa is still a phenomenal thing. The uptake is up there. So who can tell us why it has been the case? Any one of you? Why do you think M-Pesa is such a popular thing? Any one of you can actually tell us your own thought. I mean, it's a discussion. I can pick Samuel Mulwa.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine. So what I think is because M-Pesa is for the common people. It's easy to register. Yeah, it doesn't require a lot of registration process. Again, you're able to get money. From Fuliza. Really, it's there for people, unlike banks, which are complicated. So many people around Africa like easy things.
Okay. Thank you, Mulwa. Thank you. I can read also Lewis. Have a very simple and intuitive design. Thank you. Very perfect, good answers. It provides alternative to banks at a time when people were not really keen on banking, made it easier to use. Thank you. And actually, that is from Walters complimenting what Murua said. M-Pesa uses USSD technology, which ensures compatibility. Thank you. And therefore, you see many people, they are actually have, it takes care of everybody. Thank you. That is an answer from Moses Karancha. Okero, it has been widely integrated within many financial channels. Indeed, for sure, that's from Malvin Okero. Vanessa, it was designed for the Kenyan market and not picked from another country. Thank you. And this is context, and I think I talked about it. Thank you. Now I'm, even if we stopped today learning this unit, then from the answers I'm getting, now I am happy. This was that is the reason. So you are doing this, unit. Safaricom has a fast move advantage. That's very good. And in fact, the same was said by iPhone, but now Samsung has also overtaken it. That's why Samsung has almost adopted the features of iPhone. Maybe with the exit of Steve Jobs, maybe innovation disappeared. Thank you. That is from Miriam. And then it's easily accessible to everyone for sure. Yeah. Have you ever asked yourself, in fact, the old people are able to use it? I mean, they didn't go to school, but they are able to use it. Not complicated. Thank you. Accessibility. That's Thomas Mwanki. Isaac Chepkurui. It has many shops countrywide. Wide as so accessible is easier. Thank you. Which is the same as what Mwanga said, and also what the rest have said. Thank you. I'm happy for the answers. So this is really the reason, and therefore, when you look at the features of M-Pesa, they are so simplified that it caters for the commoner. I'm sorry to use the word the commoner, and I'm using the commoner in the context of those who are not going to school, who are not IT savvy like yourself, and those who are IT savvy have something to do. So it takes care of everybody. So which then brings me now into what you are doing, the technology that you are doing. The technology that you are doing, or the systems that you are doing for your IS project, they do not need to be complex. This is very important. They need to be, those that are able to do what you say they are going to do in the simplest manner possible. Because what's important is that if you say it's supposed to send maybe a particular type of message, it does not need to be complicated to send. What it is, can you actually send? And if you say it's going to present a report in a particular manner, it does not matter which technology you are going to use, but what's important, can it actually be able to do that? So this is the essence of what we call social design. I have been privileged to supervise quite a number of students over a period, and I've actually seen students struggling to do their systems using complicated things that they themselves cannot even find, and then they anticipate the person that they are making it for to find it. In fact, whenever we are marking these systems, we will always ask, okay, now, for instance, there are people who will say, I want to do this system, and when I put all together the resources, sometimes those are like um, IoT enabled, systems, you realize that when you do the cost of the materials used to come up with that system, you realize that person would have spent around 100,000. Then you are like, okay, maybe you can afford 100. But then when you look at the target person for that device, is a person whose net worth in a year cannot make 100,000. So you can see the paradox. Here you are actually saying, you are using 100,000 to make a particular device, which is going to be used by somebody who can't afford 100,000 in a whole year. So you see, at the end, therefore, it becomes something not conceptualized in the right manner. And I'm not saying that those who cannot make 100,000 deserve, something useless. No, no, no. What I'm trying to say here is that look at the reality and find the solutions in that particular context. I can tell you for free, there are other mobile money platforms, applications out there. Even before M-Pesa came into Kenya, there was, other ways of sending money and such kind of things. And those systems still exist, right? There used to be MoneyGrams. I think you know that, but you can actually check. MoneyGrams is still there. But you realize that it was so complicated that, yeah, and it was conceptualized somewhere else, not where we are. What Vanessa actually said, we need to look at the context in which these things are done. And that is now what we call the social design of ICT. That design something based on the needs of the locality. That's why we say a big number of researchers and practitioners are working to develop methodologies that take into account people's everyday work practices and activities, right? That you want to know what is it that people are actually doing? How do we actually use technology to assist them? Say that if they like something, if you are dealing with people who are highly educated, give them complex things to do simple things. They might like it. But still, give non-complex things to other people who are not that, but is doing the same. So it works. Now, definitely this believes that system developers needs specialists in the field called social systems analysts who will be responsible for communicating the technologies and managing organization change. This is an important element. Now, the other thing that's for the social scientists, which now you must be. Unfortunately, you employ yourself in your system that you are doing, shadowing manager and the workers to determine likely uses of the planned system. This is now, you would have to be the one doing this. What is likely to be, the planned use? Then participating in system design effort to ensure that the systems fit the organization structure and the culture. Meaning, organization structure and the culture, I hope you will again try also read a little more about organization culture and structures. For instance, like when you are the one I talked about is hierarchical, whereby you are actually saying if the approval, for instance, there are sections whereby they say approval is rare, that approval comes from one level, moves to the next, to the next. But there is another layer where it says you don't have to go through all this. You can actually send it to the final. So you need to understand that culture, so that then you design your system which is in line with that culture. The other one, facilitating user participation in design activity. I think you know the prototyping, and there are different prototyping techniques. Use them, design something, give to the user, tell them this is how you particularly using wireframes. I hope you know the wireframes. The wireframes can give an impression on how the system is likely to be. The user will tell you it's correct, it's not, you know, change, and that kind of things. The users will tell you the colors. I think there are a few, maybe two who are here who are working in a particular team. They are doing a system for one department in the university. And one of the things that they are working today is what we call colors. Now, the colors, as a developer, you might not know the correct, color for a given department. So you need to talk to those people. They tell you these are the correct color, then you use them. That's why we say user participation. So even when you are doing this in your system for IS project, please do not actually assume that there is no user. Try to be the user or your friend. And that's why, for me, I prefer when you work as a team. Ask your friend to be that anticipated you. If your friend can action, then it is as good as what the other person was to tell you. That critique will improve your work. Assessing current work practices and creating new ones. So yeah, this is very important. Like you do a design, try to see if you are doing maybe health management system. Now I know there is what we call the standard nomenclatures used. The last one was level 10, but I know currently it has gone to level 11, 12. So what happens is that if you are still using level 10, people will be like, yeah, you've done well, but we wanted something new, something like that. Planning the implementation, including education, training, I think we talked about that, resource support, observing the system in use and making appropriate change. So this is when now you go into deployment. I wish we could continue, but because there's a meeting coming, we will be carrying on from here. I want to read there and invite any clarification before we convert into the consolidated meeting. Okay, since there isn't any question, so we will stop here today. So what is really my reflection point that I want you to reflect is, again, to apply those 4 things into your system, that which you are doing. Try to apply them and try to see how they influence your system that you will be coming up with at the end of this, this semester. So really interrogate your system in light of what would it actually do to the user, how would it actually change the organization, how would it fit to the organization structure and dynamics. So that is a reflection. So I invite you, yes, to type your admission number, but do not exit because the meeting, I think, will be using the same credential. But let me find out from the convener, and then sorry, there is somebody else said, okay. So do not sign out. We need to confirm on something.